Okay, my friends. So here we're taking a look at this decaying average in a really, really simple way. We're just assuming that the kids are getting one grade from 0 to 4 each week. It's probably more complex than this in reality, but when I ran this spreadsheet by my buddy who teaches at Bend High, she said the math was spot on, so this is a good place for us to start our analysis. So week one, I got week 1 through week 15 here. I'm assigning at first, and you're going to mess with this in the exam, just random grades between 0 and 4 for starters. We're just going to start with that. The decayed average. Okay, so let's go through this C column first. Okay, so the first week's grade is just whatever that week's grade was. That's because that's what she said they do. They take the first grade. The second week's grade takes 65% of that week's grade. So that's that 0.65 times B3 plus 35% of the previous week's grade. So that's the plus 35 times C2. And then week 3 is the same. It's 0.65 times that week's grade, B4 times 35%, or excuse me, plus 35%. And it just keeps walking down all the way to the bottom. And then that's week's 15's grade. So what we're really going to be focusing on for the majority of these questions is week 15's grade. But in the first couple questions, I want to have you kind of goof around and look at the result of what happens with the decayed average versus the usual average. Now, the usual average column up here is literally just that. It's going to take a running average of all the week grades from week 1 to week 15. But it's a point in time. So week 1's average is only week 1. Week 2's average is only week 1 and 2. Week 3's average is weeks 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that, 2 is the average of 2. 3 is the average of 2 and 4. 2 is the average of 2, 4, and 0. 2.25 is the average of 2, 4, 0, and 3. The coding's kind of fun. If you look up at the dollar signs in front of the B and the 2, those are called absolute references. Some of you might know how to do those already. If you don't, they're totally rad as far as when you want to drag a formula, but you want some references to change and some to not. The dollar signs are called absolute references because they peg that cell. So in other words, this average command, no matter what cell I'm in, will always start in cell B2 and then drag down to whatever row we're into that point. So anyway, if you don't know that, that's a really, really cool thing to pick up in your Excel toolkit. One last thing, and I'm going to have you doing this in the exam. You're going to use the F9 button to re-randomize these grades. So every time I press F9, you're going to notice that the grades in column B change. So and right now, like I said, they're set to random grades. We're going to mess with that as we go through the problem. That's where it gets interesting, I think. But there you go. That's pretty much the setup for the problem. I'm going to set you loose with it now, and feel free to ask if you have any questions.